Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli back with another review video, and of course continuing on reviewing Halloweenish films on the weekdays. And now we come to the fourth and last classic Universal monster film that not just me, but joining me, my dad, aka Blue, both of us are reviewing, and not to mention, this one classic Universal monster film is celebrating its anniversary, and, well, obviously, makes sense to do this one, and you know what, just, save the best for last for this week and such, of the four classic Universal monster films, for this year's batch of Halloweenish reviews that I've been reviewing and such, and in addition, him joining me for one of them, and that being this. That's right, me and my dad, we are finally reviewing, from 1954, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Yeah, the NECA figure, because we have the NECA figure, and... And you saw that in the thumbnail as well, so... Yeah, I gotta post that. Have to. Yeah, why not, for the fun of it, so...
This monster movie is my favorite monster movie.
Yeah,
aside from the Giants.
You can go ahead and start off.
Aside from the Giants, love Godzilla. Godzilla is my favorite monster of all time. That roar from the original Godzilla movies, not the new ones where they enhance it and synthesize it and everything. I like the original Godzilla roar. And he will tell you that when my phone rings in the car, it will scare the daylights out of you because it is my ringer on my phone is the Godzilla roar.
Especially if it's on Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah, if it's on Bluetooth, definitely. But no, this is to me the most perfect monster movie. But I'll say the most perfect monster, and probably the most perfect monster movie that ever was, because of the fact if you look at the detail, and this is very detailed collectible of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, or the Gill Man, or whatever you want to call him. But when you watch that movie, it's amazing to see the detail in the costume. You cannot even tell that it's a costume. That's what makes it so realistic. The fact that when he is out of the water, he is breathing, his gills are moving like a fish. If you've ever seen a fish out of water, how their gills are moving and they're starved for air. They're basically suffocating. It's almost like he's suffocating when he's out of the water, the way his gills move. But we can imagine that he can probably survive on land for a period of time.
Obviously. Have to get back in the water.
He's an amphibian, meaning that he can live on land or he can live in the water, but he prefers to live in the water.
Obviously.
Much like a turtle or a frog, something like that. So
yeah, or gator and such.
Right. So this movie starts out. They find an artifact.
Well, we gotta talk about. Let's not get into it yet. We have to talk about our first thoughts and such on it.
Well, okay. I mean, it's to me, it's a solid 10.
Well, don't rate it yet.
Okay.
Just talk about what we gotta talk about our experience with watching the movie, what we thought about it and such.
Over the years, I'd seen.
How many times have we done reviews together? I think shouldn't you know by now?
Yeah, I'm putting the cart before the horse, I guess. So let me say this then, that it is honestly the way it's done. It is, as in a nutshell, as it says here on the screen, creepy, tense, and atmospheric.
Yep.
Well, the creepy part and the tense part, definitely. I noticed how they use the music. They used what we called it in the radio business when I was in radio. They're called stingers. It's like, it's like this music.
Yeah.
That just shocks you. It just shocks you when you hear it, and you always hear that music when you see the creature's face. When the creature appears in full frontal view, you hear that music every time, and then the blood curdling scream, from the woman when she reacts to it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of. It's a very classic monster movie. It was done in 1954.
Yep. And
at that time, we didn't have the special effects that we do now. If they tried to do this movie now, unfortunately, a lot of it would probably be CGI.
Well, but I think especially with this being a gill man, sea creature, there have been a couple of other films, where they have done it practical, so...
Yeah, that's true, but...
from the Hellboy films, and also something else, Guillermo del Toro, The Shape of Water.
Yes, which I watched was a very, very interesting
So
movie.
see, yeah, because I think it would be a crime, like kind of, if they went for just having the sea creature be, all CG and such, because it looks better being practical. So, and it's a good thing that some films, that have where it's had a sea creature and such, if they've done it practical. Even as of today, how practical effects look fantastic, but even in Creature from the Black Lagoon, to this day still looks fantastic.
It does.
But yeah, the first time that each of us got to watch it because you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've only seen bits and pieces of it over
Me
the
too.
years.
Me too.
And so this was the first time I actually sat down and watched it from beginning to end. Now
Me too.
I did have an interruption. I had to do something else, and I had to step away for a day. But I couldn't wait to get back to it. And I finished it and was really impressed by the whole thing.
Okay, now coming to me, before we read the description / the story, because I haven't gotten to my first thoughts on it and such, well, for me, because, yeah, I'm glad to have finally have seen The Creature from the Black Lagoon fully, and as he stated, and yeah, same goes for me, I've only seen very few bits and pieces of it. And, especially I've seen, just a little bit of, say, the climax, where the gill man climbs on the boat and, snatches Kay. But seeing this fully, I mean, it did not disappoint for me, of course. And this is a classic Universal monster film, and, it was just fantastic. And still to this day, and as I said, looking at the practical and special effects in this movie still look fantastic. And, with the sea creature / the gill man being actually on screen and, from being underwater and up the land. But at the same time, the movie still had a good story, and with its human characters and where the movie was going and just the climax and the underwater shots and, from beginning to end, it was not a disappointment.
No.
But yeah, just overall, I really enjoyed Creature from the Black Lagoon, and yeah, both of us were glad to have finally seen it, so yeah. Okay, now, with our first thoughts and such out of the way, now, and as always, read the description / the story. I mean, you can take it from here if you want to.
Remnants of a mysterious animal have come to light in a remote jungle, and a group of scientists intend to determine if the find is an anomaly or evidence of an undiscovered beast. To accomplish their goal, the scientists Antonio Moreno, Richard Carlson, Richard Denning, and Whit Bissell must brave the most perilous pieces of land South America has to offer. But the terrain is nothing compared to the danger posed by an otherworldly being that endangers their work and their lives.
Yes.
Sums it up pretty well, I think.
Of course. So getting into the film itself, because, we talk about the opening. Like, what do you have to say on the opening?
Well, the opening was interesting because they're obviously an archaeological dig, and they find the remains or a mummified hand, which looks very much like this, which is the hand of the creature. And
yes.
This is what they find. And it's more or less petrified or mummified.
The first characters that we see, like Dr. Carl Maya, if I'm saying that right.
Dr. Carl Maya, yeah.
Yeah, being played by the late Antonio Moreno, and also because there's Dr. Edwin Thompson being played by the late Whit Bissell. I think I got that right.
Yep.
And a couple that are uncredited, which, come on, there wasn't a huge cast. It wouldn't have hurt for them to also be credited. Because Art Gilmore was the narrator for the opening of this. Also, Thomas and Lewis, is that how the name is pronounced?
Tomas.
Tomas and Lewis. Lewis,
Lewis.
I'm pointing it out.
Yeah, Lewis.
Both of Thomas being played by the late Perry Lopez and Lewis being played by the late Rod Redwing. They're both brothers. And helping out the doctors, and because what they discover, and because they go back and they show this, and if they can find out and such, because we also have two of our other main characters. Dr. David Reed, being played by the late Richard Carlson, and Kay Lawrence, being played by the late Julie Adams. And it is, if I remember correctly, because it is established, because they've been together for 6 months, and they are technically a couple, aren't they?
They are, yes. They're just not married.
No, not yet. A doctored couple, basically.
Yeah.
Like, some of them are scientists and some of them are archaeologists, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But they're doctors, because there are
obvious,
doctors
of
of
course.
archaeology, just like
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, correct.
Yeah, I would know. I should have figured. But, so they bring this back, and you want to take it from here, because, like, getting help from Dr. Reed and Dr. K?
Yeah, well, I mean, they get help, and they eventually hire a boat. They go into
Captain Luke being led by Captain Lewis, the captain of the boat.
Right. It's in Brazil, if I'm correct, in South America, and it's and they and there's, of course, the captain is talking, the
Captain Luke is being played by the late Nestor Paiva.
Paiva. I would say Paiva.
And two of the crew members, which they are credited, Z being played by the late Bernie Gozier from...
Gozier.
Thank you. Yeah, that should be it's kind of a name that would not be remembered to pronounce. There's him, and there's Chico, Z's brother. They're brothers, being played by the late Henry A.
Escalante.
Yeah. So, because, and from Dr. David to Kay to Dr. Carl and Dr. Edwin, them tagging along, and Dr. Mark Williams, being played by the late Richard Denning. So, I mean, what do we have to say about the rest of the cast of characters?
Well, there was obviously, and I think it was one of the and it may have been Dr. Williams that was pretty much the antagonist.
Kind of.
He was the one that was always, kind of gung-ho, and David Reed was the one that was kind of the level-headed one.
Yeah, but at least he didn't go in the direction of, like, keeping them hostages or something like that, Yeah. He didn't go in that direction.
But they go into this area, this jungle, and they're in a lagoon, of course.
Yeah, and they were, but the thing is, like, they were supposed to, it would come back and they would once again meet up with Thomas and Lewis. But we do see at one point, one evening, that unfortunately they meet their demise. We don't see whom it is on screen, but by just seeing the hands and such, we can tell who it is. And and the Gill Man, as he's credited, attacking Thomas and Lewis in the tent.
Right, in the tent, which was really, the creature has a really interesting roar. It's kind of a growl that's really...
And how he kills his victims.
Basically just, and that's it.
Yep. And when they return to the location they previously were at, but this time, they have David Kay and Williams, accompanying them. Well, they discover and see, because the corpses of Thomas and Lewis, and just gruesome sight, and from their reactions, but now what were you going to say next?
I wanted to credit to the uncredited, the two Gill men.
Yeah.
Rico
can't forget
Browning,
to mention them.
The Gill man who was in the water, who actually did the swimming sequences and was underwater, which would have been technically difficult to achieve. But whether or not he had a breathing apparatus, was able to breathe, I don't know. I don't see how they could have done it.
And, well, he obviously would have been skillfully trained for that kind of stuff.
And to hold his breath underwater for periods of time.
Well, I would assume they'd have, like, a tank or something, like, in, like, a part of the Gillman costume.
Probably hidden off camera where he could get air when he needed it. And then Ben Chapman, who was also played the Gill Man
on land.
Yeah.
For any scenes and such where we see the Gill Man out of the water and on the surface.
So Rico Browning,
whether if it's on land or on the boat.
Technically, both of them would be stuntmen, but I think the biggest stuntman would have been Rico Browning because of the fact that he was underwater and had to do all those underwater sequences. And if you watch this thing swim underwater, it's really convincing. There's nothing about it that looks fake. It looks It looks like a Gill Man. It looks like this creature from the Black Lagoon, which is where they basically, as we find out later, they're pretty much trapped there.
Yeah.
But they're in the Black Lagoon.
And when they make their way into one part of that island where, the lagoon is black.
And it's interesting to see, it's almost like that formula with King Kong when he... when he captures Fay Ray, and he carries her,
yeah.
You see the same. It's an infatuation that this creature has with Julie Adams,
Kay Lawrence,
playing Kay Lawrence.
It's like, what is it about some on-screen monsters and such? What is it with them keeping someone hot? Like, their hostages or someone being women, just like...
Well, they see a beautiful woman like Julie Adams was, and a very beautiful woman,
yeah.
And you have to, you can't question his taste in women. You have to say that. I mean, he may not, he wouldn't exactly win a beauty contest, but at least he's got good taste in women, and he's got a nasty disposition as well.
Yeah, and also because Mark Williams would be kind of considered an antagonist, kind of.
Yeah, he did. To me, he seemed more standoffish. He questioned everything.
He was at times a jerk.
And he was, but the captain,
his obsession of just capturing the Gill Man and for the public to see.
You remember the scene when he's trying to force the captain to do something, and the captain says,
I should have. I was thinking that something's going to happen because you don't mess with the captain.
Well, and he pulls a gun too.
No, he pulls a knife.
Oh, a knife. That's right.
The captain pulls a knife right at his neck,
and says, on this ship, the captain is in charge. And he's like, you were saying, he's just like he backs down pretty quick, which is funny. He puts him in his place, which he should have,
Yeah,
he is the captain of the boat.
But at least for Captain Lucas, he was a good character and had some funny moments.
He did. He had some very funny moments.
Yeah, but my point being is because Mark Williams kind of being the antagonist, but the Gill Man is also the antagonist of this film.
Oh, absolutely, he is.
The main villain, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
when they capture they capture him in the net, and you see that, and you see really realistic looking that net is just going everywhere. You can tell that
we don't really see on screen what's happening underwater, but clearly because
you can see that net moving.
Yeah, judging by and seeing how the net is moving, clearly because the Gill Man is being very aggressive,
trying to get out. He's fighting to get out, and it's you'd think that they had a great white shark trapped in that net, the way it was just going all over the place.
Yeah.
And when they finally pull it up, it's the crane that they're using to pull
almost
it up.
About to break.
It's splintering. It's almost about to break.
But one of them was quick enough to cut the line or something.
Well, they didn't cut the line. They didn't have to.
My point being is that they cut something. So one of the characters cut something, so without the risk of it breaking, anything happening.
And then when they try to pull it up, there's no resistance, and they pull it up, and they see that whatever it was had basically chewed and clawed its way out of that, and just ripped the net to shreds to get out.
Yeah.
And they found I guess a claw.
They did.
It was embedded in the net, and then they
one of
the
the Gill Man's claws.
Yeah, they knew that it was
that
they had found that's what it was.
Yeah.
So
and
it just the suspense builds.
It does.
You don't see this creature all of it at first. That's how a lot of monster movies are. There's always this big reveal.
The first things that we see with the Gill Man is just its hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all you see, especially when it comes out of the water.
Yep.
You see its hand comes out of the water, and it grasps onto the side of the onto the bank, and as it pulls its claws back, it leaves claw marks on the side of the bank.
Even like on the surface, like sand,
Yeah, it was very interesting. And of course, when they see the tracks, when it actually gets on the boat, and they see the tracks it left behind from the water, where its feet were wet. Its webbed feet were wet, and it left those prints on the deck. That was really neat.
And and also because the underwater sequences, because one of the main reasons for them being there, they came to look for some fossils and such.
Exactly. They didn't think they were going to find a living creature.
They didn't know what they were going to get themselves into, really.
No, they didn't.
I mean, they were kind of aware, and they were assuming and wanted to believe that this could exist. And when they talk about like the history of like say a sea creature, Gillman, and another name for them, just and how at least maybe one of them would still exist.
Sure.
And
exactly.
that being the Gillman we see in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Scientific talk and history talk that they say, but and the underwater shots, because also it's obvious like Mark and David, they kind of don't get along that much.
No, they don't.
But they sometimes do, especially because when they work together and when they're underwater and stuff like that.
Yeah, but Dr. Williams is Richard Denning's character. He's really, he wants to get after it. He wants to bring it back.
Yeah.
He wants to bring the creature back, and at any cost.
Yeah,
dead or alive.
Yeah, even like David stated, like photos and pictures could do.
Exactly. And they had a picture of it, but it didn't.
Yeah,
it didn't come out.
Yeah, didn't come out, and because the sea creature moved that quick and such. But yeah, and do you recall? Because like some like in the sequences where they are underwater, like do you remember? Because what they do specifically.
Yeah, I mean they had spear guns. They had he had the camera on a big like a thing that had a big light on it.
Yeah.
So you think, how the heck did he miss it? When he took the picture, but it, like you said, he moved so fast.
Yeah. Even like there's one moment where David like cut something and like as a present for Kay,
Mm-hmm.
that part.
Yeah.
Even like one moment where Kay, she, not thinking straight, not intentionally, but just going for a swim.
Yeah, and that's like that scene. That's like the scene out of Jaws when Chrissy goes for.
And I was thinking of Jaws, and because think of like say when they try to catch the shark and being aggressive on the stuff, because as you pointed out a little earlier about the net and stuff like that.
Right.
So
she of course makes it back to the boat just in the nick of time, and that's going to happen because she's like the leading lady. She's not going to get eaten up, or at that point she's not going to get taken. But
yeah,
they really. There's a lot of suspense there, but you see
at least
from below the way it was shot. You see her swimming, and there is the vulnerability of her swimming in the water where she's exposed and has no idea of the dangers that's lurking below.
And it's a good thing the captain and the others were quick enough to see that she was swimming and just
tell her to get back to the boat.
Exactly,
because the creature would have gotten her then.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because by that point, because they just, really don't know what's out there, what's in the water and such.
Exactly.
And, and other stuff that happens in this movie, like, the other death sequences that happen, because, from Chico getting killed and Z meeting his demise too, and luckily, because Dr. Edwin Thompson didn't get killed or anything, but also, their attempts to try to capture the sea creature, and also when they discovered that, yeah, it's legit, it's out there in the water, and the stuff that they use, like, using, like, fire to scare it off or something,
Yeah, it's very scared of fire. It backs away from fire, and they throw the kerosene lantern on it, and of course it breaks, and the kerosene goes all over the creature, and the creature gets fire on it, and it screams, and it jumps in the water to put the fire out.
Even before that, because they did at one point capture the Gillman.
Yes.
In a cage and such.
Exactly.
But then, like, Dr. Edwin Thompson was keeping watch. Then Kay coming out, because even like the first time when Kay almost got attacked by the sea creature and she couldn't sleep and such, but a little conversation between Dr. Edwin and Dr. Kay, little do they know behind them that the creature attempting to get out of the cage that he's being held in, and he does succeed, and thus once again hell breaking loose and the creature attacking them, and was almost about to kill Dr. Edwin, but I'm pretty sure it was Kay who flew the flames, the fire and such, and causing the creature to be caught on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
And once again, the creature's loose and getting back in the water, and and Dr. Edwin Thompson being all bandaged up, and if by any chance he could make it. So
they said if he, as long as he could fight infection and not get infected, he would likely survive. But his he had serious wounds to his face from the creature. So, but he survived the attack. So.
Mm-hmm. And especially, and by that point, because with how many deaths there had been, by so far, because only 4 had been lost. Well, because by this point, they want to get out of there.
Can you remember?
And that's when we said, to finish my sentence, I was just gonna say, and that's when Mark is insisting that they stay and to capture the creature, but especially for Dr. Carl, he is not having any of this, towards Mark, and thus having the captain to take them out and such. And as we mentioned, Mark, telling the captain not to do anything, and because that's when a knife to Mark's neck to chin and such, and that's when Mark is very smart on Mark to just shut up. So
there was do you recall, and I think it was the captain who came up with the idea, there was some type of a drug.
Yeah, I was going to mention the drug.
And I can't remember what it was, but they were pellets, and what they would do is
you can't remember the specific name of the drug?
I can't remember the specific, but it was basically a tranquilizer.
While I'm editing, with the editing, if I remember to do so, I'll put the name of the drug in the text. So.
Yeah, it was right there.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there
on the screen. See it right there. It's we don't know what it is, but we're pointing to it. So right there is what the name of the drug is.
They see it,
but it was like a pellet. It went in, and it would just turn into a cloud, and it was like a tranquilizer. It would pretty much knock him out.
That's a good way to put it, and an easy way to establish it's a tranquilizer and to conk someone out.
So their first attempt failed because they just didn't have enough of the stuff, and then, however they delivered it, they managed to. Get it in a powder form, and they had some kind of I guess they were using the air gun, the air pressure from the spear gun.
Yeah.
Which for a spear gun, it's on
a
trigger.
They had 2 spear guns.
Yeah,
and the machinery and gadgets that they had for being out there, and boy, were they lucky to have that equipment, especially with what they would come face to face with.
So they had the pressure. They had something that they could shoot it out. And it came out in a powder form. They could do it underwater, and it would disperse fairly quickly in the water. So they were able to slow the creature that way.
Mm-hmm. And the creature just at one point a little bit later, just walking slowly and just because it's kicking in him.
Yeah, the drug is kicking in.
Yeah,
and take it from there.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is after they first attempted to capture it, which they did, but then it got out and such. So then the next time that they did so, and the next time, like, say, Dr. Mark and Dr. David went back out there again, and using those grappling guns, how'd you call them again?
Well, they're spear guns.
Spear guns, thank you, with hooks and such. Them using it once again, actually, because, David was going to do this himself. Mark insisted, and I should have seen this coming because, a bit of a fist fight, punching. David knocking him out, kind of. Even Dr. Edwin, he was regaining consciousness. He saw what was going on, so right in front of him. And thus, David going out there. But then at one point, Mark did go out there, and... obviously, because, as I recall, David attempting to take down the sea creature with those, what are they called again?
Spear guns.
Thank you, spear guns. I gotta keep that in mind. Using one of the spear guns, firing, and it attaches to the gill man. But at one point, the gill man just trying to drown David.
Yeah. Got
a hold of him. But then, sure enough, Mark stepping in, saving David. But sadly... and should have seen this coming too. Mark meets his demise. He was cocky, and he was trying to do things his way. And when he tried to finally do things his way, that was it. But at least he did help. He did help and save David. My bad. Yeah. He at least he kind of did a heroic part.
He did.
Yeah. He did. So, but and just that moment where his body just lifeless and just floating up to the surface, the water surface, and so poor Mark, but because he should have he should have known what he was in for. He underestimated the creature. Exactly, he underestimated, and their attempt to escape, and because the lagoon is blocked. obviously because it was the Gillman's doing, like having like a tree branch blocking their path.
Yes.
And their attempt to remove it. And do you have anything to say on that part? That sequence, like them trying to get it out of the way.
You see the intelligence of the creature because you know the creature has put that has built that, has brought those trees in there, those heavy trees, and put them in place because he's obviously very strong, very powerful.
Yep.
Puts the trees in place to block them, to keep them from getting out.
Yes.
So the creature knows this boat cannot pass through where those trees are. Mm-hmm. So that's why he puts them there. So you know this creature is intelligent. It's calculating. It knows how to set a trap, basically, and that's exactly what it does.
Yes.
It sets a trap, and it basically is trying to imprison them in this lagoon because its ultimate goal is to take the woman.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
It's just, his fascination with that, with Kay. So
he'll kill anybody that gets in his way. He wants the woman.
Yeah, I mean, for a specific reason, he wants Kay.
I'm not really sure.
Nor does the movie even establish.
I don't know if it's a romantic connection or not. I would really not want to see their children if they got together. But
unlike, say, King Kong, very different.
Very different, but similar because he's a beast.
Exactly.
The creature from the Black Lagoon, the Gill Man, is a beast, and while he does have he's highly intelligent and very cunning.
Yep.
He lacks reasoning like a human. So.
Yep, he does. So, and eventually, because they do get the tree branches out of the way, but the Gill Man, not giving up easily, and then just the climax and him climbing on the boat and capturing Kay, and literally because they go diving underwater.
Goes underwater, takes you through this cave, comes out into this.
We saw this cave was shown early on.
Yeah, it was. It's sort of like his little hideaway. It's like a cove. But you can access it. You can actually access it from the beach, which I thought was kind of weird that you could get to it from the beach. But you could also get to it from underwater. So that's how the creature goes in and out. He goes in from underwater and comes in and brings Kay, lays her on a rock.
And David going after them.
And goes after him and. Of course, he rescues her, but not without a standoff.
They're this close. They're this close to be attacked and killed by the Gill Man, but luckily. Dr. Carl and Captain Lucas and I think also Dr. Edwin, I'm pretty sure, because they all come in and they shoot off the guns and by killing him, basically shooting him down.
Or did they kill him?
Yeah,
because you see him in the water.
Well, because he's limping and just slowly just walking through the beach and making his way back to the water. And
we see him going down in the water, but we don't really know that he's dead because there was a sequel to this called Revenge.
Yeah,
Creature.
He doesn't move, and right as the movie ends, we see because he just he's just kind of not doing anything.
Yeah, the way it ended, I will say this: it was kind of an anticlimactic ending.
Well, really. certain films, even like the other classic Universal monster films, how those were done,
Dracula.
And you gotta keep in mind we all gotta keep in mind how some of those movies, including some of the classic Universal monster films, how they were done.
Well, it's sort of like the old saying. It's kind of a showbiz saying, and it may be more of a British saying, but it's like when just something falls flat. It's called damp squib, and it was just that ending to me was just kind of a damp squib, literally and figuratively because he's underwater, So, but it had to have an ending. The creature had to be stopped, and that's how he was stopped. But we still don't know if he's dead. I think what would have really been cool if they had done something where you would have seen him lying there at the bottom, and maybe seen his eyes closed, and then all of a sudden you see his eyes open again. And that's how the movie ends.
He somehow he might have healed up or something.
They shot him with a spear gun. They buried it. They put a spear gun in his chest, and he still lived.
Yeah, and they shot him. They shot him a handful of times at the end of the film.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter that he could, he could be like a frog. A lizard can grow another tail. Frog, I've heard, can grow another leg. So there's no reason that he's an amphibian that he can't have healing properties like any other amphibian.
Because he technically is an amphibian.
Yeah, he is an amphibian. So the guy could heal. The creature could heal and be back as good as new. So that's what I would really like to see the sequel, because I have a feeling that that's how it's going to be explained. That it's going to be the same creature, and he regenerated, his wounds healed. This creature can't be stopped, and they're probably going to end up blowing him up in the next movie. That's probably how it's going to end.
Yeah, I wonder, because do you even know? Because the sequel, yes, it actually came out a year after.
Yeah, and the revenge. Let's see. There's probably, and see, it's the same creature.
Yeah.
So let's see what let's get the overview. We should get okay, here it is. In a tributary of the Amazon, a monster, half man, half fish, is captured and placed in a reservoir in a Florida national park to be observed by scientists. Well, that second one was filmed in.
Had to read the description / the story.
That tells the story, but it was filmed in.
We're reviewing the first one. This is not.
I know, but I wanted to find out. But the second one, I think, was actually filmed in Silver Springs, Florida.
Saying. I was going to mention the filming locations because didn't you tell me this? Because part of the creature of the first creature from the Black Lagoon, it was filmed in Florida.
Yes, it was filmed in Florida.
But it was also filmed at the Universal Studios backlot and such.
Yeah, there were scenes that were filmed there. I'm sure
Obviously.
The cave scenes and things like that were filmed. I'm sure the underwater scenes were filmed in Florida and other, in water.
Maybe some of the underwater shots in a water tank. Who knows?
Well, it was filmed in a state park in Florida, so there was it was in a controlled environment. So we'll say that.
Yeah.
As much as can be controlled in an outdoor, in a state park. So.
Mm-hmm. But overall, because the ending to the first creature from the Black Lagoon film, because it's not to say you didn't like it or anything. Just what it's not like you didn't like or hate how the first creature from the Black Lagoon film ended.
No, I just took it as just a way a lot of those movies ended back then. They do just. It was just sort of like it was an ending. It wasn't anything really dramatic. It was just, the creatures just floating, drifting downward.
Yes.
But still, there is that mystery, that question: Did he survive? Clearly, he did. But you're not really seeing it like a finality, like when Kong falls off the top of the Empire State Building. He's dead.
Yeah. But there technically was still a sequel, that being Son of Kong, where we see the Son of Kong.
Yeah, the Son of Kong.
So that's acceptable because, it's not King Kong again. It's someone in King Kong's family.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good end. The ending to the first creature from the Black Lagoon overall, it was still a good ending.
Oh, it was a very good ending. Yeah.
Yeah. And just from beginning to end, this movie was no disappointment. It was all fantastic.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so Creature from the Black Lagoon, just what a fantastic and, classic Universal monster film this is. Again, from beginning to end. The story was fantastic, the cast of characters, and, with, of course, the main titled character, really being credited as the Gill Man.
Let's not forget the special effects.
Yes, I was, of course, going to mention the special / practical effects.
Major props to the special effects of this.
Bringing the Gill Man to life.
Yes, definitely so.
And again, and as I said early on, to this day still looks fantastic.
So is it okay now if I give my...
what are your final thoughts and results on how you feel on the film?
You pretty much said it all. It was a fine film. It was very well done for the time. It was not hokey. It was not. It was
none of the classic Universal monster films are hokey and such.
Oh no, they're very well done. There's nothing. Some of the old sci-fi movies that came out, I started watching. I didn't get to finish it. It was called "It Came from Outer Space," and it was interesting.
I think I get that. I know that one. It was an
interesting movie. The actor that played the professor in Gilligan's Island, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. Shame on me for not remembering.
Ross something, Jonathan
Russell,
yeah.
Russell Johnson.
Yeah.
He played in it, and very young. It took me a second to really recognize.
And obviously, this was before Gilligan's Island.
Oh my gosh, yes, about 10 years before, in fact. So
in the 1950s, obviously.
Yes, in the early 50s, but it was fairly well done, even though it had a silly name. I mean, it came from outer space or whatever. But it had an interesting premise to it. But movies like that, the old sci-fi movies, the kind that they would show on a loop when you go to the sci-fi theater, drive-in theater.
Yep, Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Disney's Hollywood Studios. It was nothing like that. Nothing was hokey. It was very well done, very well thought out, a very good plot.
Nothing like, say, some of those others like Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Exactly. That's a classic to watch, though. Oh, that is a classic movie to watch. It is just so. Oh, you're just watching it. Just like 1 minute they're in daylight, and the next minute it's dark, and it's like, what? It's like, did the sun go down that quick? Or did the sun come up that quick? Because I think it was dark, and then it's daylight. And he just shot however he wanted to shoot. He was interesting.
Even in Tim Burton's Ed Wood, the movie making a comment on that. So yeah. So, but again, your final thoughts and results, and before we rate this, on Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Excellent film, classic.
And one of the top best
monster film. And
I was about to say one of the top best classic Universal monster films.
It's my favorite Universal monster film
as of now.
As of all times, because I think the creature is so cool. I think it is the coolest monster that is over Dracula, over Wolfman, over Frankenstein. It is just the coolest monster that's ever been, other than Godzilla. Godzilla is the coolest. I'm sorry, Godzilla is the king.
Different.
Totally different.
Yeah,
Godzilla's king. So.
Yes.
But second in line is the Gill Man from Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Right. And yeah, because before each of us saw the movie, because already, we were fascinated with the film and with the Gill Man and such. And I'm sure anybody would, because, even before you see any of the class, because I've stated this before, anybody who, even before, you don't see any of the classic Universal monster films fully, you would be aware on those characters, and you would find them cool and such, and until you would see them fully, and you would still enjoy them, and just you get my point. But yeah, so okay, now how we rated, we'll start with you.
10.
Same.
Solid 10.
And as for me, well, same. Both of us, both me and my dad, we give Creature from the Black Lagoon 10 out of 10 stars. 10 out of 10 stars for Creature from the Black Lagoon. And what about you guys? What do you think of Creature from the Black Lagoon itself? Any of you that, and as I said, if any of you were already fascinated and thought that the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Gill Man, to best call him, was cool looking before any of you saw the movie fully, and until you finally watched it, and is it one of your top favorite classic Universal monster films, and is the Gill Man one of your favorite Universal monsters, characters, etc.? What were some of your favorite parts of the film, and did you get a kick out of the practical effects and seeing the Gill Man on screen, really there on screen, and the music and score? Can't forget to mention the music and score was fantastic.
It was very good.
And any of you that were feeling the intenseful stuff and just anything, and how you felt on the ending, but just overall, what do you think of Creature from the Black Lagoon itself, and with what me and my dad have had to say, and our review, and what did you think of our review? Leave comments, and give this review video a like, as always. And with that being said, thank you very much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed our review of Creature from the Black Lagoon. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and we'll see you guys in the next video/review. And right before he grabs the camera, I will say this. Of course, continuing on reviewing more Halloweenish films and such, and, I don't know how to describe the next one, but let's just say the word baby is in the title. Then that's all I'm going to say, so stay tuned for that. Any last words?
I must be off.
He says that for me. Again, thank you very much for watching. Happy anniversary to Creature from the Black Lagoon. Take care, and peace out.